Joining us now live from Cairo, Eddie Yeranian. Eddie, man, we got a lot to talk about today. Thanks for being with us, our man in the Middle East. He's also a longtime veteran with VOA, the Voice of America, and with CBS Radio News, and he's in Cairo. Eddie, occasional Washington Post columnist Jamal Khashoggi, he's a Saudi, so everybody knows what happened. He's a Saudi journalist, and he was very critical of the Saudi government, especially the government of Prince Mohammed bin Salman, we call him MBS, who is taking over as supreme ruler of Saudi Arabia, and MBS consolidating power in the Saudi regime probably like never's been seen, arresting a lot of people, calling it, as they always do, arresting for corruption, but arresting his political enemies, putting them in a hotel prison or something, and doing a lot of things. Anyway, this journalist, this Saudi journalist, Jamal Khashoggi, was a vitriol critic of MBS and the Saudi government. So he came to the United States. He was not a citizen, but he came on a work visa for the Washington Post, and he said that he was in self-imposed exile to get out of Saudi Arabia. He got engaged to a Turkish woman, and he had to go to the Saudi, because he's a Saudi, he had to go to the Saudi, he went to the Saudi embassy in Istanbul in Turkey in order to get his paperwork straight to get married to his fiancée, who is Turkish. His fiancée accompanied him to the embassy. He went into the consulate. Camera showed him going in. His fiancée waited for him, and he's not come out. And this was days ago. Now he's feared dead, murdered. And the cameras, the Turkish cameras on the outside of the entrance, have no footage of him going out, only going in. Let's break this down with our man in the Middle East, Eddie Yeranian. Eddie, what is going on here?
Well, John, a lot of things are going on, and that's the problem. And a lot of people are trying to use this incident, this development, whatever has happened, for political gain. And a great deal of political clout and money rides on this. And this, I think, putting it in the clearest terms for your audience, it's more sordid than the Kavanaugh situation, because you've got two sides in the Middle East, the Qataris and the Saudis. Trump is aligned with the Saudis, and the Qataris are trying to, the Saudis are trying to pull down the Qatari emir, and the Qatari emir is trying to pull down the Saudi prince, crown prince, who is the power behind the throne at the moment. So anything is possible here. I know Jamal Khashoggi. I've spoken to him repeatedly over the last 10 years. So I don't want to say anything, that would adversely affect his well-being if he's still alive. But there's really no proof that he's not alive. And the Turkish president, who's a Muslim Brotherhood guy, is using this for his own political advantage, it would seem. And the people that are shouting the loudest about the U.S. having to break relations with the Saudi crown prince and Saudi Arabia in general have been making these noises long before Jamal Khashoggi disappeared. They've been saying it about Yemen. They've been saying about his arrest of Walid bin Talal and other princes. But the Saudi crown prince has killed nobody up until now, and he could have killed a lot more important people when he had them in Riyadh, including Walid bin Talal, whom I believe he hates even more than he hates Jamal Khashoggi. So that's the one fishy item in this whole development. And as far as Jamal, the people who are defending him, and I would defend him normally myself, since I know him. I spoke with him maybe less than a month ago, I think, for a story. The thing is, the people who are defending him are Muslim Brotherhood people for the most part. A lot of them are people who take money from Qatar. And I don't want to get too involved in that dispute, because it's not my I have no interest in this one way or the other. But the Qataris support a lot of media operations, and they're making a lot of noise. Muslim Brotherhood people are making a lot of noise, saying that Jamal has been killed. We don't know for a fact that Jamal has been killed. I would think that if the Saudi crown prince had really abducted him, he would have taken him to Saudi Arabia and wanted to hold on to him. I don't think he would have wanted to kill him. He's killed nobody up until now that we know of.
Where is he?
I was guessing that, most Middle East embassies probably have underground passages leading out of buildings. It's a very common thing in this part of the world. So if the Saudis really wanted to take him, they probably pulled him through an underground passage out of the building and took him back to Saudi Arabia. That would be very easy for them to do. I wouldn't doubt that that's probably what they did.
So why hasn't he emerged then? Why did they just say he was in Saudi Arabia for questioning? I mean, either there was foul play or he was abducted because he went there to get paperwork to get married. So, because he's a Saudi citizen. So he went to the consulate to get paperwork to get married. His fiancée was outside the gate. He never emerged back out of the entrance he came in. So what you're saying is either he was a victim of foul play or he was abducted against his will. I don't think he went there and said, hey, do you have a tunnel to get me back to Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I think he probably was abducted, but I mean, they would have gotten him out of the building through my impression is if they had abducted him, they would have gotten him out of the building through a tunnel. That's what I was saying.
Why did he go there?
Well, his wife is Turkish, his fiancée is Turkish, and I guess you need to do the paperwork in the country of your fiancée's wife, her in your fiancée's country, which is Turkey. So also, the Saudi embassy in Washington, I'm not sure that they would have been able to do it, but the Crown Prince's brother is the ambassador. So, it's possible that he didn't want to do it for reasons that they, might be the same reasons why they would have wanted to abduct him.
I don't know. You're saying it sounds fishy. I'm asking the question, where is he? I mean, where is he? I mean, if there's no foul play, was he abducted or did he just decide to break up with his fiancée and didn't want to tell her? I mean, the whole thing doesn't make any sense to me. How involved should the Trump administration get in this, Edward Yeranian, based on the fact that he was living in self-imposed exile in Virginia?
Well, first of all, I would assume he's probably in Riyadh. I assume they probably, if they abducted him, they would have taken him out of the building, out of the country, and on a flight to Riyadh. That would be my first guess, although I have no proof, any more proof than he got chopped up and murdered. But the Trump administration is being pushed to react, which is a bad sign, because you can see the people pushing, they're the ones who don't want the Trump administration to be close to Saudi Arabia, which is a financially important ally, especially in the political process, given that the Democrats take a lot of money from Qatar. So you can understand with the millions, or maybe even worse, of dollars that fund these political parties, that the Republicans would not want to lose Saudi Arabia. And you've got all the Democrats, if you read the Washington Post article today, who are out there saying bad things about Saudi Arabia, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, and how the Trump administration must break with with Saudi Arabia. And that, that's the whole fishy thing about it, because when you start hearing that, and I've been hearing that for, before Trump was, or Khashoggi disappeared, same things about Yemen, that the U.S. needs to react to Yemen. I don't think the people who are saying that really, other than maybe Save the Children, really care about children in Yemen. They're more interested in disrupting the relation between the U.S. president and Saudi Arabia.
So, listen, Ed, I get what you're saying about the bigger geopolitical situations here, but the guy's missing, and he's based in Virginia, and he works for the Washington Post, and he's a legit journalist, and nobody knows where he is. I'm going to get to our Interpol executive in a moment. Nobody knows where he is. You've got the president calling on MBS, Mohammed bin Salman, the Saudi prince, calling on him to pay up for a bigger percentage of the defense and protection that we provide him. He just, over the weekend, he said no, he wasn't going to do that. You've also got the president mad because he's continued to raise OPEC prices while, in Trump's mind, The U.S. government has funded their defense, so he's pissed about that. So you've got a lot of things in play here, but let's get off the geopolitics and get back to the journalist. I mean, my question again is, where is he? And if he was abducted, don't you think the administration should back channel it and find out where the guy is and what happened to him, based on the fact that, he worked for an American company and he lived in Northern Virginia?
Yes, I'm sure they're doing that right now. I hope they're doing that right now. If I were Secretary of State Pompeo, I would be doing that right now. That is my assumption. But there are a lot of possibilities here. I mean, there are people who could have wanted to foul up U.S. relations with Saudi Arabia, knowing that he works for the Washington Post and knowing that the Trump administration is in a bad position and would have to react, and knowing, especially considering that you've got all these media organizations that are close to Qatar and the Democrats who were making a lot of noise about Yemen before this, because they're saying that the U.S. must stop supporting Saudi Arabia militarily. I mean, that would foul up relations with Saudi Arabia from the get-go. And that's, I couldn't possibly divorce this from the geopolitical implications of it.
Okay, so we don't know where he is. You're contending that let's not jump to conclusions. He may be fine, and this may be part of a bigger picture, or maybe he's in the hands of someone else that abducted him and then pinned it on the Saudis, who are, of course, saying that he left the embassy, but they can't show footage of him leaving the embassy because they have look, if you're a consulate, you've got 80 million cameras all over the place. All you have to do is release the footage that shows him leaving and then say, have a good day. I don't know what happened to him. Not our problem. Yeah. They've not produced that. That's a problem.
Yeah, that's right. I agree with you. And I'm dismayed about this too. But I have heard from the Egyptians, and obviously they are allies of Saudi Arabia, and they don't want to say anything bad about Saudi Arabia. Their argument basically that people in the Egyptian system I've spoken with have said that the Saudi intelligence people are not that stupid that they would knock him off, and I think that's true. And there are theories that there are other parties that would have wanted to foul up relations between Saudi Arabia and the U.S. that would have, would not have thought twice about stopping to kill someone like Jamal Khashoggi, assuming that's what happened, which we don't know.
Okay, so your advice here is wait and see, don't jump to conclusions. All right, I get that. I'll take that for what it stands for. Let's get to the China Interpol situation, right? So we've got the head of Interpol, who is a Chinese national, goes to China, and now he gets arrested. It's inconceivable to me that he would have even gone there. I mean, why do you go there and put yourself at risk? If you go there, there's a high chance you're going to get abducted by the communist government. So my question is, why on earth did he go, and what happens now?
Well, he is, according to all the media reports, he is a government official. He's a deputy intelligence minister. I think at some point, someone who's a government official is obliged to return to his country as a matter of course, whether he likes it or not. Although, I mean, he could have resigned from that position, or he could have resigned. He could have remained in France. The French are very upset about this, since Interpol is based in France. It was perhaps a calculated risk, and he thought something could happen, but hoped it wouldn't, and got caught. A sad situation. Obviously, the Chinese government was very proud to name him or have him named as the head of Interpol. So clearly, whatever it is that they have against him has to be very powerful for them to do that, considering that they were proud of having their own national as the head of Interpol.
You're right. That's good analysis. They were very happy that he was named to that position, and he comes back, and now they've arrested him for, what did they say, corruption, bribery, things of that nature. So whatever they've got him on, whatever he did that they didn't like, as you say, must be big, because they didn't really want to give up that position of authority they had. I mean, look, being the head of Interpol in France, Edward, explain to our audience how big of a position that is.
Well, it is a bit ceremonial in terms of the actual clout. that he has. I mean, he doesn't run the day-to-day operations at the bottom. I mean, the people who are putting out the warrants and things like that. But he is a highly public, visible person who would get a great deal of play in Europe in the media, and clearly gives a positive impression of China to the world, to at least the European audience, since America, probably the American media doesn't cover him that well, but he is well covered in France. So, yeah, I mean, he does, and this one of the worries when he was named in 2016 was that he could possibly have an influence on rounding up Chinese dissidents across the world. That hasn't proven to be the case so far as we know. But as I said, because he doesn't have the day-to-day operations in hand.
So let's get back to Jamal and the Saudi situation. Edward, make a prediction. How do you see it playing out?
I'm hoping, since I know him, that he will surface in Riyadh and that they will be holding on to him and that they will be willing to release him after all this pressure, as they did with the Lebanese Prime Minister Saad Hariri when they detained him maybe 6 to 8 months ago, I guess at the beginning of the year.
Yes.
So I'm hoping that's what happens.
All right. Well, we'll see what plays out. Edward, it's great to have your perspective. It's certainly a different perspective than we've gotten from the legacy media on this, and certainly the Washington Post, New York Times going bananas over it. Adam Schiff, who's the head of Democratic House Intel ranking member there, put a very caustic tweet out last evening saying that he wanted answers on it, and I retweeted that. Edward, I want to thank you for your perspective, as always. Great to have you. Edward Yeranian live in Cairo, our man in the Middle East. Thank you.